This is Sleeping in Trees, the audiobook. Chapter 15, May I Have This Dance? If one were to ask a group of people today if they ever attended cotillion, the vast majority would probably stare back blankly in response. Most likely, the younger ones would, at least. A few septuagenarians might know what cotillion meant or even have attended one themselves. Cotillion is basically a school for general etiquette and learning manners, as well as the refinement of one's skills in ballroom dancing. If Emily Post, the arbiter of manners and all things in good taste, had founded a university, it would have just been a giant cotillion. At risk of putting forth a tedious, crotchety social statement, I would like to suggest that the whole process of knowing and implementing proper manners has become slowly diluted in American society over the past century. Manners, in many cases, are but a quaint anachronism today. Let's just say the bar around manners has been lowered. What once took a healthy run and jump to clear now requires only a small hop. Consider, when was the last time someone said, "Excuse me," when they reached across for that can of corn in the supermarket? How about just opening the door as a courtesy for someone else, allowing them to enter first, man or woman? How many office meetings have we all attended where everyone rudely just talked over one another instead of politely taking turns? At a restaurant, watch how many gentlemen pull out the chair for their dates to help them become properly seated. How often does the waiter, now called a server, offer to clear the plates only after all have finished? Speaking of finished, when we complete a task, we are indeed finished, and not done. As my mother said to me and my brothers 1,000 times, only a turkey is done. Of manners, we are unfortunately a nation in short supply, just as we are less and less in need of eating utensils. But who cares? With the predominant American diet today consisting of burgers, pizza, wraps, burritos, and other non-traditional items, delivered increasingly by food trucks, aren't we all just eating with our hands anyway? My mother was a huge Emily Post fan. She had all the proper manners down pat. With 4 unruly sons, she spent a fair amount of her day and evenings counseling us in how to comport ourselves in modern American society. It was a generally tedious and irritating process for a 10-year-old, but today I am glad she was so vigilant. She had standards. Sadly, standards, at all levels of our modern society, seem to be under attack as well. Standards? Standards? They have apparently vacated the premises. Cotillion it would be. Overwhelmed and exhausted from steady coaching, which seemed to often fall on young, deaf ears, my mom found a cotillion 10 miles up Old Cutler Road in Coral Gables, at a spectacular old church built entirely of coral rock. She enrolled us, as did a number of other desperate parents in her social circle. A renowned Oscar-winning actor's pugnacious son, Christopher, was in my session. What I remember most about him was the bevy of 12-year-old girls giggling whenever he walked by and following him everywhere. He was smart and funny, had lots of vim and vigor, and a penchant for fighting in the parking lot. Clearly, his father, the actor, believed an upgrade in deportment and manners was in order. Lobster and I attended cotillion for 3 years. My sentence ran from age 10 to 12, his from 11 to 13. There was no parole. The sessions ran 8 weeks on Saturday nights in the summer, which, to say the least, was far from ideal. Perhaps our parents had a larger plan. This blew the better part of 8 inventive weekend evenings, where Lobster and I would have much preferred to be doing a million other things. However, we were home by 9:30. Our nights were still young. Not all was lost. It was hot as Hades at cotillion, and we, of course, had to dress in our best blazers and ties. We perspired. The warden set up a carpool. Right on time, every Saturday at 6:30 p.m., a station wagon would pull up into our driveway, securing several freshly scrubbed inmates. We would slowly shuffle to the car dejectedly, heads bowed, and hands in our pockets, and crawl in. At the same moment, Mom and Dad, reminding us as we exited the kitchen to mind our manners, would be sitting comfortably at their handcrafted mahogany bar. They would smile and raise a toast to the time-honored and treasured art of polished manners and good etiquette. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were the directors of the cotillion. I believe they were both properly referred to as the sponsors. Military officers would have been a better reference. Mr. Miller was the commandant, and the Missus his first lieutenant, second in command. I was certain both were ex-Marines, so strict and stern was their own deportment and regimented style of tutelage. He was as big as the banyan tree right outside and maybe just as solid. She, in contrast, was a tiny wisp of a creature, and when they demonstrated the tango, it was truly a sight to behold. He flicked and she flew. Sometimes I was certain she was actually hovering a few inches above the burnished hardwood dance floor, like the hummingbird she seemed to be. We sipped Hawaiian punch in little glass cups. Pinkies up. For 2 full hours, we were drilled in proper table settings and manners, like what to say when the waiter asks if one is finished. Not done, God forbid. I've had sufficiency. Seemed to cover it. One certainly does not say, I'm stuffed, followed with a belch. As my mother frequently pointed out, only a turkey is stuffed. There was always the ballroom dancing segment, too. We were trained in how to properly request to dance with a young girl and how to thank her cordially when the music stopped, and finally how to cut in. I admit that I never understood the cutting in part. It seemed invasive and rude. After all, the song was all 3 minutes long. There would likely be others soon, and standing idly nearby were plenty of twittering girls without partners. We learned the waltz, the foxtrot, the tango, and my favorite, the rumba. It is possible that there was a single feature as the years went by that made the whole tedious lockdown just a little less so. The girls. I most definitely noted that they seemed each year to have found new ways to become more attractive. They were taller and cuter, and there were always a few that had been blessed with some truly inspirational physical changes that sponsored a grin, raised an eyebrow, and brought a sparkle to my eye. Except for the excitement of the occasional fist fight incited by Christopher, my first year in cotillion was a pretty boring and dull affair. But by age 12, I admit to being a bit more eager to see the new warden pull up in the carpool station wagon on those summer Saturday evenings. The next time your buddy raps on your bedroom window early in the morning, asking if you want to make some money, just go back to sleep. It's chapter 16, and it's called Independent Contractors.